Alright, so we have 1,500 points of Harlequins, and I'm pretty excited to be running them today with the new Eldar Harlequin models with the Aeldari here. What I'm going to be doing is actually running a CAD with these guys. This is the first time that the Harlequins have been able to run a combined arms detachment, and that's because up until now they have not had an HQ slot. So they have some new formations that they can be put in, and quite honestly I'm not sure if the formations are going to be better than just running a CAD with the Harlequins. I guess it would probably depend on the type of mission you're playing. We're going to be using an ITC scenario here, so having objectives secured I think is going to be pretty beneficial. But it could be that some of the formations are maybe a little more competitive for the Harlequins to run in. So the Harlequin army is going to consist of course, the 3 new HQs, where I guess one of them is Lord of War. We've got the Yavrin, the Ykarn, and the Visearch. They're going to be in this list, and they're in different stages of painting, as you can tell. I'm going to be running 3 troops choices here. They're going to just be a troop, each troop with 4 Harlequins and a troop master, and of course I'll be throwing a couple of the HQs in with them, and they're all going to go into those Starweavers back there. I've tried to really beef up their close combat so they all have Caress of Death. And then we're going to be running 2 units of Skyweavers there, and there's going to be 1 Haywire cannon in each of those 2 units. So pretty simple here, just learning the new models and getting used to their rules. Might try out the formation here next. Of course, as you can see here, one of the pitfalls to Harlequins is they just cost so many points. They're pretty expensive models, and so you're really not running much. This is 1,500 points, but there is not a lot of units there, so we'll see how they do with this mission. And the Harlequins are going to be pitted up against the Purple Marines here, and this list is just the one that's been ran a few times in the past, so pretty standard. I think it'll give the new Harlequins sort of a good look on how they're going to play. This is a pretty standard list here. We essentially just have 3 units of TAC Marines with a missile launcher in each of them. I've got 2 HQs. One of them has the Shield Eternal, and then I believe Orbital Strike with Terminators there. They're all going to go into Land Raider. Another HQ here has Artificer Armor, and it's just going to run with some TAC Marines. And then of course we've got a Dreadnought, and of course the 2 Stormhawk Interceptors, and that's going to be 1,500 points of Space Marines. So the board is all set up. We're going to be using ITC Scenario 2, which is Relic, and we've got the Relic placed down right there. And then each of us placed a Maelstrom objective in the deployment zone, so there's 1, and then there is 2. The Harlequins are going to be setting up on this side. It's Hammer and Anvil. The Space Marines get this side. We're going to roll to see who deploys first. Harlequins roll a 6, Space Marines roll a 2. We'll have the Harlequins go first. Alright, so the board is set up. Our Harlequins are on the board. Again, not too much looking out there. We do have one of them down here on the objective just in case that's rolled for the Maelstrom, and they're kind of just getting ready to maybe jump on that Relic there, try to steal it away from the Space Marines. Space Marines set up, and I got the Rhinos out in front, 24 inches, ready to charge the Harlequins, it looks like, and they have the Stormhawk Interceptors in reserve. And then of course I have the Ykarn in reserve because he has to come on through Deep Strike. But of course if a unit is killed, he can pop up wherever. So we'll go ahead and get the game going. We're going to have the Space Marines roll to see if they seize the initiative. And I believe they actually get a bonus here because I have a Lord of War and they do not. So it's a 4, they just miss it. Harlequin's going to go first. Okay, so we're at the end of turn 1 for the Harlequins, and quite a bit happened. It was probably one of the most successful turn 1s I've ever had in general, but just really good rolling for the Harlequins as well. So first of all, the Maelstroms that I rolled was to have a unit in the enemy's deployment zone within 12 inches, and I actually did get that with a couple Skyweavers up here. Hopefully they survive. I did put them right next to that Rhino. But of course with their like Eldar jet bike move, they can pretty much jump across the table pretty quickly. The other one I had was to have 3 of my units in the backfield and none of my enemies. I don't think the Space Marines are going to be able to get back there. There's really no way. They can't bring on their Stormhawks to get back there. So should be good. And anyway, so with the Starweaver there, we've got 2 units inside of it with the Warlord and a troop. So should be good holding that down. But as far as the turn went, everything moved up, and I tried to do a little trick here. Of course, the Ykarn, which you can see is on the board, the only way it can come on is through Deep Strike, or if a unit, friend or foe, completely dies. And so what I did is I moved up a Starweaver, as well as some of the Skyweavers, another unit there, and then the other Starweaver. And I wanted to take out a Rhino as well as kill the unit inside of it if possible, and that was so I could bring the Ykarn on. This Starweaver actually blew up the Rhino with its shuriken cannons, and it killed 2 of the models inside, and then the Skyweavers finished them off, bringing the Ykarn on. To my knowledge, he can't do anything right now because he can't charge. He doesn't have any like shooting weapons. He only has some psychic abilities, but yeah, so he's just sitting there for right now, but he's ready to go next turn at least. Then that Starweaver back there did the same as the other one. It shot the Rhino and blew it up and killed 2 models inside. So again, just some really successful shooting with the Harlequins. I forgot how good that Blade Storm can be, giving them strength 6 and then AP 2 if you get that 6 on the wound roll. So anyways, yeah, we're gonna move on to the Space Marines turn 1. Alright, so we're at the end of turn 1 for the Space Marines, and they definitely turned it around. They also had a great round of shooting. So their Maelstrom for this turn was to kill 2 enemy units, which they did achieve. They also get first strike, so they're tied with the Harlequins on first strike. As far as the units they killed, of course, those Skyweavers that I recklessly threw down here, they jumped out. The Tactical Marines jumped out of that Rhino and were able to shoot them down pretty easily. And then back here, those 4 little TAC Marines with the missile launcher was able to actually take out that Starweaver there. So everybody jumped out, including the Vice-Arc there, and anyways, they were sitting out there, and then the Warlord for the Space Marines used their orbital strike, and it actually landed, which seems to be 50-50, but it was just placed down right on that unit, so it took out most of the troops there, so it was pretty successful. So everything else just kind of moved up. Of course, we're down a few Skyweavers there. The Land Raider came up and shot them off of the Relic. The Terminators jumped out here and tried to charge the Ykarn, and Ykarn's pretty tough. With weapon skill 9, it made those Power Fists pretty difficult to actually get through to put any wounds on him. And of course, he's got a 3-up armor save, I think a 5-up invul, because he's a demon, and then feel no pain as well. So he actually didn't take any wounds, but was able to take out 2 of the Terminators there, so they're still locked in combat. But anyways, it's pretty even right now. In fact, actually the Space Marines are going to be a little bit in the lead because they got 2 Maelstroms, and Harlequins are only going to get 1 for the next turn, but we'll see how this continues on. I have to say, just kind of observing right now, the Strength from Death I don't know if it seems that great, because there's only 3 models on the table that have it, being the new models, and they can't be with another, like locked into another unit to use it. So like the Vice-Arc there, he was unable to use Strength from Death because I put him in a unit with those troops. So I need to actually remove them and keep them separate so that they can essentially get a second turn if one of the units they're with dies next to them. So anyways, we'll go ahead and move on to Harlequins turn 2. Alright, so we're at the end of turn 2 for the Harlequins, and a pretty good second turn for them. Quite a bit was done. The Maelstrom they needed to achieve was to hold down Objective 2, as well as have, again, 3 units in our backfield. So again, this guy, or Starweaver back here, is pretty much doing that for us, and it's holding 2 down as well. This Skyweaver ran up, grabbed the relic, and then ran back. Of course, he's kind of slogging back because he can only move 6 inches. This Starweaver moved up the board. This unit of Harlequins jumped out and actually took down that Dreadnought. The reason they were able to do that is they have Caress of Death, and so when they roll a 6 onto wound, it's an auto hull point taken off. So the Dreadnought went down pretty easily, actually. Then we did make a charge over here with the Visearch. He has 1 lone troop master left with him. The Overwatch was actually pretty successful for that lone 4 attack Marines, and they were able to take out 2 of the troops for the charge, but they got in there and they took out 2 more troops, so they're just kind of locked in combat. Combat continues to go on here, and the Karn's pretty tough. He is just such a high weapon skill, and he's got some pretty good saves with Feel No Pain. So he took out the rest of those Terminators, again, because he's striking way before they do. They have Power Fists, so he took them all out. And it's just the Warlord there stuck in combat with them. And the Warlord did take a couple wounds, but was able to roll them off, so nothing there. And then back here, this Rhino did go down. The Starweaver over here actually shot into it and took off the hull points. Didn't blow it up. But then that was about it for the Harlequins turn 2. We'll go ahead and move on to Space Marines turn 2. Alright, so we're at the end of Space Marines turn 2. One of the Stormhawks did come on the board. Their Maelstrom this turn was to hold down Objective 1, which is actually under the Rhino there. And then to have 3 of their units and none of my Harlequin units in their deployment zone, which that's not the case currently anyways. We do have the Karn back there. So they're unlikely to get that one. But anyways, they took down that Starweaver there. They also took down the Skyweaver that was holding the relic. That was the Land Raider, shot into that, killed them. The assaults were finished, and the Karn actually killed their Warlord, and then the Visearch and that Troop Master over there were able to kill those 2 remaining attack Marines, so that unit is now down. So there's not too much on the board here. A lot of units have been taken out. We're going to move on to Harlequins turn 3. Okay, so Harlequins end of turn 3. Their Maelstrom was to have one of their models in the enemy deployment within 12 inches of the enemy deployment edge. Of course, we see the Karn here. He actually came up, charged into this unit. But prior to that, during the psychic phase, he actually used his Primaris power, blanking on what it's called, but essentially you pick a model within 18 inches. It's a Witchfire power. If you have a higher leadership than them, they have to take a strength 6 hit, essentially, and was able to put another wound on one of the other HQs for the Space Marines there. And then he charged in and I think killed 3 attack Marines, and then again they weren't able to really do anything back to him. No wounds went through. This troop actually charged that Land Raider, and again, because they have Caress of Death, they were able to just get through the Land Raider there, putting enough hull points on it. This little unit back here, they're actually falling back, trying to run and grab the relic as we move to the later phases here. I'm kind of worried about that Stormhawk and the other one coming on and wiping out this end of the board. There's really not a lot of models left. And the other Maelstrom I had was again to have 3 units back here in my deployment zone and on my enemy units. So looks like I might be able to get 2 for the next turn, but we'll see what the Space Marines can do. Here at the end of Space Marines turn 3, Space Marines, they rolled to hold Objective 1 and then have 3 units in their backfield. They're not going to get either. In fact, actually the last turn, they didn't get any of their Maelstroms. They needed to hold Objective 1, but when the Yakarn charged in, it actually pulled them off that objective, so they lost it. As you can see in the Space Marines turn, we resolved combat here, and the Yakarn was able to take out the unit of attack Marines, but then is just stuck with that other HQ there. Did get 1 more wound put on him. He's kind of a tank though. He's doing pretty good there. The other Stormhawk did come on and did take out the Vice-Arc as well as that Troop Master that we're running back there. The Stormhawk moved back up here and was able to put 1 whole point on the Starweaver back here, so he rolled some pretty good saves. So that was the Space Marines turn 3. We're going to now move to the Harlequins. And we're at the end of Harlequin's turn 4, and pretty much nothing on the board at this point. I'm also realizing that I haven't been doing the Soul Burst correctly. I realize now that the Ikaran here probably could have taken advantage of it, I think a turn ago, because I interpreted it as when an Eldari unit, I guess, was completely destroyed, that they'd get the Soul Burst, not recognizing that it is just whenever a unit is destroyed and they're within 7 inches, so long as they have strength from death. That's the key there. So anyways, probably haven't played that one quite right, but I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. He did take down that last HQ there. The Maelstrom that Harlequins had for this turn were to hold down objective 2 as well as kill an enemy unit. They are holding 2 and they did just kill a unit, so we'll see if they can get that second one. This unit just is running. There's really nothing else on the board for them to attack, so they're going to try to hold that table quarter because that is one of the tertiaries. So these guys are going to see, hopefully they won't get killed by any Stormhawk interceptors. I did try to get behind it so that it couldn't turn 90 and put any shots into them, but we'll see. And anyways, this guy, he did put some shots onto the Stormhawk interceptor here, but it didn't do anything. Didn't get any good Skyfire shots. So we're going to go ahead, move on to Space Marines turn 4. And it is pretty close. I think the Harlequins are in pretty good position at this point. But they are weak, and so who knows, maybe a few good shots with a Stormhawk interceptor could table me, but I think I do have a good shot at primary as well as the secondary right now. Alright, so we're at the end of turn 4 for the Space Marines, and we're actually going to call it here because we realize there's nothing else on the board for the Space Marines to use to either grab the Relic or even grab Maelstroms. It's essentially 2 Stormhawk interceptors. There was one over here, but it had to fly off. There was no, I mean, it could have flown over to the corner there, but really would not have done anything. Couldn't get any shots on this this Starweaver here. This interceptor did move up and did kill the Starweaver there. Now, I didn't put anything out because we're calling it, but the 2 units inside, both my Warlord as well as the troops, would have jumped out onto 2 and still grabbed that Maelstrom. So in conclusion here, we have a Harlequins win. I don't get too many wins with my Harlequins, but this was a pretty simple Space Marine list, so wasn't necessarily anything super competitive that they were up against, and really they almost got tabled. They're still very, very fragile. They're so expensive, and giving them all Crest of Death, which does make them quite lethal against vehicles and things like that, adds a lot of points to the troops. At least they did have objective secured this turn. That really didn't come into play at all, since the troops for the Space Marines never were contesting any objectives. I don't know how much better the Harlequins are now that we have some HQs for them, as well as this Lord of War. I think I need to still play around with them. I'm going to try to run some of their formations using my Harlequins. I do like the Ikaran. I think he's kind of a fun tank to have on the board. Definitely, if you use him correctly, I think that he can jump around the board and do some damage on some of the other bigger units. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see some more Warhammer 40k in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.